like to welcome everybody back. Hello, OCW. In OCW is week 10, lesson 1. Today we're discussing global Hallyu, Korean wave. Okay? Okay, pay attention. Yes, as the students know, on Wednesday we went to a very exciting conference. Okay? We went on a class field trip to Hanyang's first international conference on Hallyu, okay, and Korean studies. And we had 2 panels. The first panel was talking about Korean studies, okay, because because the Korean government, they want to promote, the Korean studies all over the world, okay. And then there were 3 papers, and one of the papers was talking about Korean studies in Western Europe. Okay, so watch this on the screen for me. So, and the author from Italy, I think Brunor, she was saying that Korean studies is heavily dependent on funding, okay, from the Korean government. So basically money. So the idea is that money plus teaching staff plus degrees equals Korean studies. At the same time, government funding is not necessarily the entire solution, okay? Because you can think in terms of we talked about Osborne and Gabler, top-down versus bottom-up, right? So what would be an example of kind of a top-down model for Korean studies? Top-down means what? Who's in charge?
Government?
Yeah, the government, right? Oops. Ooh. I hope you heard all that. Sorry. Okay. For those who didn't hear the microphone, we're talking about 2 models of Korean wave, Korean studies. The first model is top-down, government-sponsored. Okay. And in terms of Korean studies, that means that it's the Korean government that gives money to start to maintain Korean studies programs, whether it's language, social science, etc. What are some major universities that offer Korean studies? Waseda, and also
Tokyo University.
What?
Tokyo University.
Tokyo University. How about what was the first Korean studies program? Right, it was Hawaii, right, 1975. Okay, and the second one was, where I'm from. I think the second and third ones were University of Washington and UC Berkeley. Okay, so UC Berkeley had Korean studies since 1979. Okay, I went there. Anyway, but the author is saying that a lot of Korean scholars are kind of dependent on this top-down model. They depend on Korean studies, Korean government to get Korean studies going. But what is the problem with that? The problem might be what? If you really want to make Korean studies strong and make a big impact, you also need what? Instead of just money from the Korean government, okay, top down, you also need more bottom up. That means you need what?
The people's attention.
Yeah, you want people who generally want to take Korean studies. That means you need students to take the classes, and you also need graduate students and professors who want to take the classes, teach those classes. Okay? So it doesn't matter how much money the Korean government spends on Korean studies, you still need students to take it. Okay? And that's been a problem in Japan because, and I think the professor from Waseda was saying that, Korean studies used to be popular, but recently what happened?
And the historical conflict.
Yes, there's been a lot of historical conflicts. So there's been kind of an anti-Korean wave, anti-Korean studies. So the number of students taking Korean studies at major universities have dropped. Okay? So sometimes there can actually be a conflict. When government gets too involved in promoting in trying to promote its image overseas, say Dokdo, Uridang, or Donghae, EC, then it kind of undermines the bottom up. Okay, it undermines when the government gets too involved. Many of the people, there's a backlash. Okay, you can actually make an interesting analogy. Cherim's not here, but you can make an interesting analogy with China. because China also sponsors this image. They also try to sponsor Chinese studies through which institute? The Confucius Institute. Okay, it's famous, right? So the Chinese government is spending like hundreds of millions of dollars to promote Chinese studies abroad through the Confucian Institute. Okay, but again, because it's kind of top-down, funded by the central government, many students and scholars are kind of like, it's like a kind of a pushback. Okay, because we want academic freedom. Why should the Chinese government determine what we study? Or why should the Korean government determine what to call the Sea of Japan or EC? It should be more like bottom up, more organic. Okay? And so try to think of like, what would be a better model, right? To for Korean studies or for Japan studies or Chinese studies to get more people involved. Okay? And then I think one interesting example might be maybe, like Ryan Cassidy was saying that, he was one of the speakers. He was saying you need to, like, if you want people to really embrace, then you need to be more open and diverse. So instead of just a few people determining what is Korean culture, just Koreans or just the government, let everybody or let many different kinds of people determine what is Korean culture. Okay? And then during the conference, one of my favorite examples was what? Well, Taibo or Korean taco. Has anyone heard of Taibo? Taibo it was a very famous exercise program in the United States during the 80s and 90s. Taibo means Taekwondo boxing. Right, Taekwondo boxing. It's like you do this, you do that. Taibo. You can look it up on Wikipedia. It's very famous. And the founder of Taibo, he's a Christian. He's also a Taekwondo artist. He's like a black belt, like Taekwondo champion. He's also black, African American. Okay, but because Taibo, this guy, right? There's a Wikipedia page. There's it's this guy. Yeah, he's Billy Blanks. He founded Taibo. It's pretty neat.
Is it from the Billy's boot camp?
Oh yeah, I don't think.
Oh, wow.
That is hilarious.
Oh yeah, is that popular in Korea?
Yes.
Made Japan too.
Why is it so hilarious?
He says lots of funny things.
It's basically, like I said, it was developed in LA. Okay, ooh, look at this. So it's basically taco with bulgogi and other types of Korean meat. Looks good, huh? Anyway, and it was developed in California, Los Angeles, because there are many Koreans and Mexican people. They work together, and Koreans like me, we love taco. Okay. And Mexicans, they love bulgogi. So yeah, we mix it up. Yeah, fusion. Okay, and it was a smart fusion, so it worked. And so when you let people kind of like make their own culture, then they embrace it, and people become interested. Okay, and people were study it on their own and actually pay money for it. Okay, another one of my favorite examples would be like karate or yoga. Okay, Japanese government didn't promote Okinawan karate, right? It was actually embraced, adopted by Americans. Okay, and they were the ones who they were the ones who paid money to get karate masters, sensei, to America so they can learn. Okay, so and because karate was open to everybody, yoga, Indian yoga was open to everybody, then it was like so it became like this global culture. Okay, so that's something that Koreans can do. Okay, and in order to do that, you have to think about how can we make Korean culture, Korean society open, so everybody will want to participate. How can we make it more open? Okay, I want you to think about that when I call you one by one. Okay, that's question number one. How can we make Korean studies, Korean culture more open? Okay. Another example is I was thinking about K-pop and Psy. Okay, because Korean government, they're spending a lot of money to promote K-pop. I think Professor Cassidy was saying the budget for the budget for culture went up 3%, but the government funding for K-pop went up 12%. Okay, almost like 4 or 5 times more than the rest of the budget, right? But Ryan was saying again, Korean government is promoting a very narrow form of Korean culture, because K-pop is not that different from J-pop or H-pop, Hong Kong pop. Okay, they all sound the same, right? And so, K-pop can easily be you can easily lose to competition because it's almost like a commodity. They sound like every other group. Young guys, pretty girls. Okay. So you want government to, instead of just giving money to just one field, maybe encourage many different cultural forms. Okay. Just to give you one example, might be like Psy, Gangnam Style. Korean government didn't promote Gangnam Style, right? But they loved Psy after it became famous after Gangnam Style. Do you see? So it seems like the Korean government, they're always sponsoring and giving money to people who already became successful. Okay? But Psy doesn't need all that, Psy doesn't need any more money from the Korean government or any more awards. Same with Kim Yuna. Okay? Instead that all that money and attention should be given to who?
People who might be successful.
Or just new artists. Okay, different artists. And also you need to redefine what it means by success. By success, does it have to be like Kim Yuna or Psy? Do you have to win the gold medal? Do you have to get 1 billion views on YouTube? No, not necessarily, right? Maybe you can be successful in other ways, like what? So instead of having 1 billion views, maybe have what?
1 billion views for the
maybe not 1 billion readers,
fine.
okay? But maybe instead of a billion, maybe just a few thousand is fine, okay? But instead of having one Psy, maybe like 1 mega Psy, maybe you can develop 1,000 or 10,000 mini Psys, okay? In the United States, we call this the theory of the market of the long tail. You know what the tail is, right? What does that mean? Has anyone heard of that? The long tail? What's a tail mean?
It's like theory is like how to say?
Like 강아지,
Yeah.
right? So the idea is that these days, instead of trying to make a lot of money on one big bestseller, okay, like Harry Potter or Gangnam Style, companies can actually make more money by promoting maybe 1,000 books, okay, but each of them sells a decent number, okay. So instead of one book that sells 1 million, you can have 1,000 books that sells a couple of thousand. But if you have 1,000 books that sells let's say 2,000 on average, that equals to what?
2 million.
Yeah, 2 million. Okay, so you can instead of focusing all your energy on that one book, million seller, just encourage 1,000 artists. Okay, some will be very successful, some will be so successful. But if they average maybe 2,000 readers, then the company gets 2 million readers total. You can make good profit from that. In market theory, it's called a long tail. Okay, so it's not instead of the big dog, instead of just focusing on the big dog, focus on the long tail, the many smaller artists. Okay, do you understand? So I want you to understand. I want you to write this down, and I want you learn from this, because I don't want to be like Korean style and make you do multiple choice every week. Don't you have professors that test you on everything that the professor says? Is that a good idea? Yes? Is that a good idea?
No.
Why not? It makes you learn it, right? Then why is it a bad idea? Okay, one is hard, you stress. And two is that you memorize, but you don't really synthesize. Okay? For me, like instead of memorizing like 1,000 things that I told you, I'd rather you take the time to kind of think about it, and then like how does it all relate to each other, link to each other? Be creative. Do you see? But I do want you to write it all down and learn it. That's why I asked you at the end of the semester, tell me what you learned. Okay? If you didn't learn anything, low grade. But if you learned a lot and you told me, and you tell me what you learned, then you get more grade. Okay? But I want you to tell me what was the most interesting things that you learned from class and why. Okay? Anyway, so again, top down would be government promoting, or these big companies promoting these big celebrities like Psy or Kim Yuna. Okay? But a more bottom up strategy is that let encourage like a lot wide, thousands of artists and athletes, okay? And let them all develop their own fan base. Okay? And you can't think of this as a partnership. In Osman and Gable we talk about steering, right? Steering means what? That the government does everything? No. And government actually doesn't act directly. Government sets goals, but it encourages, it gives funds for other people to meet those goals. Do you understand? And it measures results. So, government, Park Geun-hye, she says Psy is our greatest cultural product. And then after she said that, Psy made what? Gentleman, right? Was that our nation's greatest product?
No, really.
No, it kind of sucked. And it's like, why would you want Westerners to see that and think this is what Korean guys are like? Do you want to act like the gentleman? No, that's very anti-gentleman. You understand? So one, it doesn't promote a really good image, and two, it wasn't as popular. It wasn't considered very unique. It was considered kind of generic K-pop. Do you see? Gangnam Style was kind of unique, okay? But instead of promoting and giving all your money to Psy, you should give money to lots of different artists, okay? And let them like seed money, right? And then let them, let them do as best as they can. Some will be very successful, some will be small, but collectively, this makes Korean culture stronger, okay? More attractive. Okay. All right, now. So let me read a few pages from Ryan, and then I'm gonna ask each of you to come up. Okay? Tell me what you thought about the conference, or if you didn't go, tell me what you thought about the conference papers, or just some of the themes in the lecture today. Okay, Hallyu. Now this is Ryan Cassidy. He's been here since IMF, long time. Okay. And just as a personal background, he's from Canada. His family's Irish. But he came, he loved Korea. He met a nice Korean girl who was open to him. So they married, and they have 2 kids, so he stayed. If none of the girls were open to him, maybe he would have left. Because, man, they need a woman to be happy. You think so? Okay. Yeah, there's actually scientific studies that show women can live by themselves and be healthy. Men cannot. So, like a man, when the wife dies, he dies too. But a woman, when the man dies, she lives a long time, and she's happy. Okay, but a man, they need a woman, to be healthy and happy. Okay. Anyway, so Ryan said Korea has invested heavily in cultural exports, resulting in a trend now known as a Korean wave, a trend which has had quantifiable benefits for the Korean economy. Okay? blah, blah, blah. And also, the Korean government is very interested because they're interested in soft power. Government is interested in any kind of power. So, woohoo, soft power. That sounds good too. We want more of that. Okay? And one of the avenues, two of the avenues for soft power is television dramas, and these days, K-pop. Okay? But he's saying that there's a danger in putting too much resources into K-pop because it's very easy to copy K-pop. Okay? So in 2011, Japan announced Cool Japan to basically replace K-pop. Okay? I don't know. Have you heard about Cool Japan? Is it popular?
Maybe it's still in progress now.
Okay, still in the early stage. Okay? And then in 2004, there's a Confucius Institute. Okay? All right, now, but Ryan is saying that, okay. Well, anyway, in terms of soft power, government, the theory is that, you need business, culture, government, diplomacy, education. This all leads to soft power. And this is the reason why the government put money into all these areas, especially education and culture. And also, companies like Samsung, right? Okay. But Ryan says there is evidence that Korea may be taking soft power too seriously. The government is putting too much energy into this. Okay? That too deliberate attempt to use cultural assets for political and economic purposes will provoke backlash as a case of anti-Korean wave movements and slogans. Do you understand? What's an example of using your cultural asset for political and economic purpose? Okay, and it might lead to a backlash. So maybe it started out as culture, but then it became politicized. Olympic? Korea or another country? Like who? Like Russia? Or China? Okay. So you're saying Russia used the Olympics for a political agenda? Like what?
Korea used the Olympics.
Are you talking about Par?
Yeah.
88? To what? To say like Park Chung-hee's so great? Or Chun Won so great? How?
Showing Korea's country unity.
Okay, so Korea's great. Okay, like Korean nationalism. Okay? And maybe Russia, China.
Influence very positive.
So it was very positive? Okay. So you're saying 88 was a very positive thing. Okay? It was good for Korean soft power. Did it lead to any backlash? Backlash means too much nationalism means other countries like you less. Okay? So maybe 88 was a good example of nationalism, but what's a bad example of nationalism that uses culture and sports but in a negative way? Remember we talked about this last week, like every time we have soccer game, football, between Korea and Japan, there's always what?
Kind of territorial institutions over territorial issues by kind of support.
Yeah, so many of the fans are always putting like, 톡도 우리다, or they have pictures of who?
안중근.
Yeah, 안중근. You should like, yes, we need more assassination of Japanese Prime Minister. Okay.
Not the sports room.
Right. What?
Not the sports soccer.
Right. So many kinds of sports, right? So the point is that you're using sports, which is culture, but you're using it for a political agenda.
Yeah.
To make Japan look bad. Do you understand? And so that leads to a backlash from Japan. This is one of the reasons why K-pop, Korean studies is becoming less popular in Japan. Okay? Another example might be, remember a couple of weeks ago we talked about bank? Volunteer Action Network of Korea. It started out as cultural, right? It started out as what? What did they do?
Kind of pen pal?
Yeah, pen pal. Okay, to share culture. Because pen pal writing letters to each other, that's like the classic example of cultural sharing, right? So learning about each other's culture, each other's lives. That should be, and we usually think of being pen pals as very positive, right? But how did it become negative?
Right. To promote like Korean histories and other things, which is kind of positive for South Korea. Kind of founders in the bank has been kind of using Japan to unite the people.
Right.
The Korean people.
Right. So you have like thousands of pen pals, foreigners, and instead of learning about each other, instead of like two-way communication, let me learn from you, and you can learn from me. It's basically you learn from me. This is what you have to learn. What do you have to learn from me? You have to learn what?
Korean history.
Yeah, especially like it's not the Sea of Japan.
Yeah.
It's East Sea. Okay, and they were not the comfort women. They were slaves. Okay, and so it basically becomes one-way communication instead of two-way. Okay, two-way means that this is what I think, this is what you think. Let's try to understand each other. There is no mutual understanding, just one way. And when that happens, it leads to like a lot of backlash. So if you had a friend who kept saying like I don't know, like Northern Territory, Bukhan 땅, okay? Do you want a pen pal like that from North Korea? No, it's like I thought we were gonna be friends. Why you keep saying Northern Territory? 우리 뭘, okay? And so like then maybe I don't want to be your pen pal anymore. Do you see? Because it's not you're just trying to politicize everything, and you keep on telling me how handsome Kim Jong-un is, and I don't care about Kim Jong-un. I just wanted to make friends with North Korea. But you keep telling me how handsome he is, and how 날씬해, and how 멋있어, and it makes me kind of sick. You understand? Anyway, so okay. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of Westerners, well, a lot of foreigners, they don't like North Korean TV. Have you ever watched North Korean TV?
Yeah.
Yeah?
In the movies, in YouTube.
Okay, YouTube movies, right? And then it's like
the great Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, they're always talking about the great leader, the great Kim Jong-un, right? And it's like, and so they're trying to use like movies and TV to show how North Korea is so great. But what?
They created all the cultural.
Okay, so they
production.
Right, but they politicize every culture in North Korea, right? So every artist, every actor, every filmmaker has to glorify the leader. Okay? And do you want to see movies like that?
No.
Why not? Come up here. Explain to the audience. Okay? Okay. How come you don't want to see, movies about the greatness of Kim Jong-un?
I just wanna watch the movies only, not the pure movie or pure article production.
Yeah,
That's
so-
related with political, like the great Kim Jong-un.
Right, so maybe a little politics is okay, but I think as consumers, we want to see like real art. We want to see what you really think. Okay, so I want to see your vision, not the government's vision.
Yeah.
Okay, because if it's just the government's vision, then it becomes kind of boring. Every movie, every play, it's all about the great leader. It becomes very boring. Okay, and so it makes like the foreigners not really attracted to you. Okay, so that's, and you can make the same analogy with with bank. Okay, if all you say is that Korea's good, Japan's always bad, it's too simplistic. And then after a while, foreign audience they just close their ears. Okay, because it's too simplistic. But if you have a more like interesting discussion, like these are some good things that Korea did, these are some bad things, like what we did in Vietnam, then people will say, oh, I didn't know that. That's very interesting. And if you say that you're a mix of good and bad, it makes you sound more human. Because not every leader is perfect, right? Not every government is perfect. Not every nation is perfect. And by showing that you're imperfect, it makes you that much more human, and it makes you that much more appealing to an audience. Sounds good? Okay. Let me see now. So anyway, like in 1998, the government invested $500 million. It's a lot more money today. Okay. And then governments, they try to pick winners and losers. Okay. Like like people like Zion, after they become successful. Okay. And then Ryan Cassidy is saying it's very hard for government to pick who the winner is going to be, because oftentimes winners are determined by the market, and governments have a bad record of picking what the market's going to like. Do you understand? And so and the example from him would be like 겨울연가, Winter Sonata, okay? Because the government never made Winter Sonata for a foreign audience, right? And so it wasn't government who made Winter Sonata. It was who made Winter Sonata. It was Korean producers, and they made it for who? For the Japanese?
Korean.
Yeah, for Koreans. So they never thought about promoting this overseas. But then because they made a great product, and because it was a real human story, many people could relate to it. And so it naturally attracted an audience in other countries. Do you understand? Just like yoga, or Taibo, or Taekwondo, okay? Maybe yoga was at first for Indians, but then it's like a human experience. And so other people wanted it too. Same with 겨울연가, because it's a story about love and 짝사랑, okay? And many people can relate to that. Okay. And Bruce Lee, because Cherim's here. We love China too. Okay. Many people can relate to Bruce Lee. Japanese too, right? How can you relate to Bruce Lee? Because
since Bruce Lee and looks like really cool, maybe like a song in the film, so maybe best majority man.
Okay, so he's a cool guy, and so he represents like manhood, right? Right. So he doesn't necessarily represent China, but he represents what a man can be. Okay. All right. Now let me see now. Okay. So basically, he's saying that right now Korean waves like a tsunami. It's like big and powerful. But tsunamis, they're also short term. So you don't want a tsunami. That's not good for your country. Just a short term thing. Okay? It's like Japan during the 80s, right? 80s Japan was big but didn't last. Like the housing bubble, right? Instead of a big short thing, you want something that can be like more longer lasting. Okay? Like a surf break, continuous waves. So instead of a huge tsunami wave, have multiple waves going in different directions. That's example like that would be like California with Silicon Valley. We don't have just one or two big companies like Samsung. Silicon Valley is famous not because of Google, but because of many smaller companies. Okay, some become big like Google, some are small, but there's many different kinds. So it's like, and because of that, Silicon Valley, California is very rich because they produce all these new waves. You understand? So that Silicon Valley, same thing with Hollywood too. It's not just, we don't just have 3 TV stations in America, right? We have like hundreds of TV stations producing all kinds of shows. It's like a long tail, okay? And not all of them are blockbusters, but many of them have enough audience. So Hollywood, Southern California is rich. You understand? Okay. I guess a really good example would be like YouTube. Does YouTube make big money because of one big movie? No.
Advertising.
Right, but they get the advertising from one big movie. No.
So many kind of
More than how, yeah.
Right, from millions of movies, right? You know, all different kinds, right? I don't know, maybe it's a billion now, right? It's probably a billion movies now, right? So think of the long tail with billion, okay? So instead of spending all your money on one or two big movies, you know, provide a platform where anybody can share their movie with the whole world, okay? And if your movie is popular, then advertisers will advertise, and then you can split it, you know, maybe like 50-50 or so, right? Do you understand? And that's how Yahoo makes billions of dollars. Not because of one big movie, but because of millions and billions of small movies. And I would like to see Korea develop Yahoo. No, I mean YouTube. Yahoo is not so good. But do you understand? So for me, like I want Korean wave, Korean culture to be like YouTube, where everybody can participate and redefine Korean culture, Korean identity. Okay, and they all get some fans, some audience, right? And then collectively, you make a big impact. Do you understand? So think about it, right? Like, you know, when you're free, do you go to, you know, big Hollywood, or do you go to YouTube? How do you spend your time?
Over YouTube.
Yeah, probably YouTube, right? Maybe sometimes like, you know, Hollywood, right? But then you go to YouTube because why?
Very kind of really easy to access.
Yeah, really easy, and there's something for everybody, right? Do you understand? You know, big and small. So for me, like, you know, the long tail means YouTube. It means the internet. Okay? It doesn't mean like, you know, the opposite extreme is like Kim Jong-un, one big company, one culture. Okay? You know, internet, YouTube is many, many different cultures. And then we all, you know, form it together. And so it forms like one general internet culture or one general YouTube culture. Do you see? I don't know about young people, but I think a lot of young people, they like YouTube and movies, right? Personally, I like books. So I've been reading a lot of my books on Kindle, and then I like Agatha Christie. Okay? Has anyone read Agatha Christie?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not bad, right? Yeah, it's fun, and so for me, I'm part of that long tail. Okay? So, you know, yes, I sometimes read Harry Potter, which everybody else reads, but I also like to read like classic like detective novels, right? Like Agatha Christie. And there's like enough of us that, you know, that we can form. It's like we can form like a small mini Agatha Christie culture. Do you understand? Or like a Bruce Lee culture, right? And they, you know, fans of Bruce Lee actually made a big statue of Bruce Lee in like Eastern Europe. Did you hear about that? Wasn't it in China news? I think it was like Bosnia or somewhere. So weird. But he has fans everywhere, right? So even in this small village in Eastern Europe, you had enough fans to make a big statue of Bruce Lee. Okay? And so for me, like that's a good example of Chinese culture. Okay? Where everybody participate. Okay. All right. I want everybody to come up, tell me what you learned, and what you think. You know, how can we promote Korean culture, Korean wave, or Japanese wave, or Joseonjok wave? Okay, tell me how. Tell me why. Okay, everybody has to go out one by one. Okay, Mr. Chesuk, Mr. Chen. Okay, do you need your weekly summary, or can you remember? Okay. All right. Okay. Your name? What's your name?
Sokhan.
Are you single?
Yes.
Yes. Take a look, ladies. Handsome. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, let me turn this off. Go on.
Okay, my summary on the Hallyu thing was Korean studies in North America. And what I read was that there's a institution named namely Korean Studies Institute in the University of Southern California. And what I learned was that there are many universities or academic institutions teaching Korean studies. And in fact, it was kind of about the immigrants, studies on immigrants and Asian countries, but the Korean culture or studies on the Korean particularly, it was about Asian immigrants before the Hallyu, but after the boom of Korean wave, Hallyu, the studies on Korea only has increased. And my point was that Hallyu was kind of, this culture wave is just a tip of an iceberg, because what I thought was that if Korea wasn't rich enough and not politically influential enough, then there would be no Hallyu. So what I think is Hallyu is the consequence of the economic growth and political growth of Korea. So what I'm thinking is that if we want to boost Hallyu or Korean studies, this kind of bad, well, I think we need to go outside. People need to go outside and like foreign workers, and not just as a 3D workers, but as an professional intellectuals.
So you're saying we need to invite them to Korea, or we need to go?
We need to go out.
We need to go out?
Yes.
And try to talk to the intellectuals?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, as the intellectual. I mean, we need to grow. I mean, raise intellectuals, international intellectuals and celebrities to go outside and talk with the international society.
So isn't that kind of like what the Korean government is doing now? Like they're funding Korean studies and having all these big conferences.
What I read was that the Korean government is paying money to the foreign universities.
Okay.
And also the Korean universities. Yes, I think the government is doing well.
Okay, that's fine. So so Mr. Che is saying that government needs to spend more money, and you need a strong, powerful nation to promote your culture. That's a good claim. What might be a counter argument though? That does a country need to be rich and powerful for its culture to be globalized?
Not always the case.
Yeah, what's a counter example?
Like,
think of a religion or culture from a country that that is poor and weak, or that used to be poor and weak.
like India.
Yeah, maybe India, and also Tibet. So like Tibetan Buddhism is very fashionable right now. Like Dalai Lama, right? He's a very famous name. But Tibet's not a very powerful country. It's occupied by China, right? But because they are resisting the powerful, many people feel real sympathy for the Tibetan Buddhists. And that's number one. And two is that, they resist the Chinese in a violent way. Do they kill them with swords?
No, right.
No. Some of them. I think that's more Xinjiang. Okay? But Tibetans, for the most part, it's been fairly peaceful. And so again, they see that as an example of it's a very moral way. It's a morally good way to fight evil. Not through violence, but through, peaceful protest. And so when you do things like that, you can be like an example for the whole world. Okay? And so the Dalai Lama has actually been received by the President of the United States. And many people, especially in Hollywood, see him as like a role model for America. Okay? So, keep that in mind. So, do we need power, or can you still have influence without power? Okay? Okay. All right. Who's next? I can just be Korean and I'll call you. You can go like this. What's your name? Okay, come up here. You need time to prepare. Who's more ready? It's okay. Just tell me one thing you learned, and just tell me one thing you learned, and one thing, one comment you have about, how can we promote Korea? Okay. Did you learn anything?
No.
Okay.
Yes,
That's fine. So first question is no. How can we promote Korea?
First, I learn about this lecture,
Mhm.
especially Japan.
Okay.
Japan study about Hallyu and Korean studies.
Mhm.
It's more very. They study very hard, and many of.
Sure. Let me ask you a couple of questions. One reason why I wanted to do the conference is because I noticed that, like, let me ask the Korean students or the Japanese students in your university. Have you gone on many field trips before? Yes or no? No. Why not? How come you never go on a field trip? So basically, you don't go on field trips, right? And then, do you meet many foreigners in your class?
Yeah, I don't.
Did you meet a lot of foreigners in your class? Not this class, but in your other classes.
Yeah.
Like which classes? In political science?
Yeah. I don't have many foreigners.
Okay, because one of the complaints that I heard at Hanyang, and especially at Wede, is like many students come to Wede because at Wede says, come to Wede, meet the world, right? And so they come to Wede and like, where's the world? They're all Korean. It's just like the saying.
It reminds me of Tom and you in Beautiful Girls.
Oh, it was all a lie, huh? Yeah, they're still pretty. Anyway, so many people thought when they come to Hanyang or Wede, they thought they'd meet all these. They thought it would be a global experience, right? But one, they realized that, wow, my college classes are just like high school, just lecture. And two, I never get a chance to talk to foreigners, okay? Because usually foreigners, they take separate classes and they have their own international student organization that only few Koreans can join. You have to apply to join, okay? And I think at Wede only maybe like 20% get accepted. So one of my students who went to Cheonggyecheon, she applied like 2 or 3 times, and she always got rejected. Do you see? So for me, like, I think it's very important, for university students to not just, apply what they learn to the real world, okay? To go to Cheonggyecheon, to go to this academic conference, and meet professors and students from different places, right? Because at the conference, you met professors from many different countries, and you also saw so many international students who were so interested, who came all the way to Korea to learn about, Korean culture, Korean society, okay? And that's why, this was such a good opportunity for you to go and make friends. But you didn't make any friends, did you? That's one thing I noticed by Korean students. Like, they spend so much money on Hagwon to learn English, but they never use it. I mean, like, you spent 10 years learning English, and then I take you to this international conference where half the people are international students, and you don't even say hi. Why are you so 부끄러워? I don't know. So I'm just saying that if you really want to, promote Korean culture, then the first thing is you have to say hi. You have to be friendly. You have to talk. You have to have communication. You need to go beyond, like, 복도 우리다.
But there were no pretty or beautiful
girls. Yes, Mr. Chesuk is, 잘났어. He only likes beautiful people. But do you only like beautiful people, or you love everybody, right? Me too. So he's a bad guy. Mr. Yoon's Mr. Yoon?
Yuan.
Yoon Han. He's a good guy, ladies. So even if you're ugly, call him. Okay? He wants to talk to you. Okay? He wants to share Korean culture with everybody. You see? Okay. All right. I think most of you are not ready. So okay, let's finish here for today. But next week I want everybody to come and tell me like what did you learn, and how do you want, how can we share Korean, Japanese, or Chinese culture? Okay? Will you be ready by Tuesday? Okay. Unless you want to share now. Okay, not. Okay? And for those who are going to MT, tell me, what you learned from the MT and how that can, and how does that tell us about promoting friendship, between different cultures. Okay, we're done. Thank you, OCW. We're gonna have MT this weekend, and next week we'll tell you all about it. Woohoo!